pretty constant format. So I see Susie, Harvey, Merle, Lynn looks, I know she's there. Oh, there she is. Hi, Lynn. Hi. Okay, Herman. I see Herman. I see Howard. Hi, Doris, Herb and Sylvia. Steve, I can see you totally now. Thank you, whatever you did. You're no longer blacked out. Joanne, Cindy. Oh, great. Hail, the gang's all here. So September 20th is our next session. And to mention that September 8th is a Friday evening service congregational meeting. It could be very interesting. I mean, services are good. And September 9th, Slichot, so that we just kind of know where we are.
Yeah.
I want to give a shout out to a program entitled Diaspora Jews, Time to Take a Stand. Diaspora Jews, Time to Take a Stand. We watched it when it was first broadcast. It was sponsored through the Jewish Journal and other places. And I will tell you that it's worth the hour. It really was good. So Diaspora Jews, Time to Take a Stand. That's it.
Where can we find it?
Well, I mean, if you go to YouTube, I mean, you'll be able.
Oh, okay.
You'll be able to pick it up out of YouTube.
Time to take a stand. Is that what the rest of it? Diaspora Jews, time to take a stand. Is that what you said?
Yep.
Okay. Want to write it down.
Diaspora Jews, Time
Time
to
to
take.
take. Okay, great.
All
Thank
right. So what's going on in our world? On September 12th, there's going to be a major court challenge to the whole notion in Israel of the judiciary reform, and reform in quotation marks. The pressure has been enormous. Pressure from the United States, pressure from international organizations that Israel should not move forward with this process. The president of Israel, Bougie Herzog, has been conducting almost round-the-clock efforts to reach some sort of compromise. The Justice Minister, Yariv Levin, has rejected any possibility of compromise. He wants the court revision to move forward. The representatives of Likud and of the center and left center parties are all scrambling around to find a reason to say no. We don't know where it's going to end up. It is extremely unclear. But one thing is clear. Bibi has been told by Smotrich and his crew that if Bibi backs away from the judiciary reform, even in search of a compromise, they will bring down the government. So it's gotten to be that costly an activity. Again, unfortunately, it's going to end with, I don't know. I don't know. Brad, good to see you, Brad. Hi. I don't know where it's going to end, but they had all summer. And, you know, sometimes compromise is only reached in the last 12 seconds. But right now, it looks really bad. And we can always hope for a miracle. What's also interesting is that the Israeli protests, Saturday night, Saturday night usually, protests against the proposal in Tel Aviv, still drawing 100,000 people. I mean, that's, what is it, 35 weeks, I think, something like that. That's not exact. I think it's 35. The protests are strong. If the resolution does become law, all bets are off as to what the response will be of the Israeli community. I would say, folks, it's a really difficult time. We're going to move forward from that because I don't have anything other than we know September 12th, the court will be taking up whether it's a constitutional law, it fits whether the law is legal. And in the meanwhile, the law is all set to go into effect. So there we are.
Isn't it time to get rid of him once and for all, Rabbi?
I'm sorry?
Isn't it time to get rid of Bibi once and for all?
Well, that's not up to us, Herman. And the time to get rid of Bibi is when the Israeli people decide that it's time to get rid of Bibi. And there are many, many, many people in Israel who would want to. But there are many, many, many people in Israel for whom Bibi represents the lever they need to crush liberalism in Israel.
Sounds like somebody we have in this country too, but I don't want to get political.
No, I mean, I don't disagree with you. The story is not dissimilar, except in Israel, it's coming to a head right now. And if my prediction would be, if the court rules that the rule is illegal, please understand what this means. The rule is designed to curtail the Israeli Supreme Court. If the Israeli Supreme Court, which has not yet been curtailed, rules that the law to curtail it is illegal, I think in the old days we'd say there's going to be hell to pay. The political right and the religious right will not tolerate that answer. The 100,000 every week, and it's always plus, 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 will not tolerate not following what the court rules. That's a formula. Do I say milchemet achim? I don't want to say it in English. Civil war. Civil war in Hebrew is a war between brothers. Milchemet achim. We're going to move forward. I'm sorry. We're just like interstitial. We are in a place where we can't go forward and everything is out of our control. What isn't out of our control is every one of us contacting everyone we know who's connected to any position of power in the American Israeli Jewish community and letting your voice be heard. And believe me, that's important. I have a call today at 1:10. You'll notice that I'm going to flee our conversation, in which I am speaking precisely to a person of significant power, urging that person to take a public stand. So we'll see. Okay, next, sort of good news, but yeah, Sylvia's shaking her head like, I want to do better for you, Sylvia. I just can't. Over the past several months, the Biden administration has been trying to broker a normalization agreement between Israel and Saudi Arabia.
Saudi Arabia.
Okay. Now, Saudi Arabia has already made noises of trying to make some sort of deal with Iran. The United States is saying that some sort of alliance between Israel and Saudi Arabia would advance everybody's interests in the region. The problem is what it's going to cost. And to secure the deal, Saudi Arabia demands a major defense pact with the US, almost like NATO. That is to say, if somebody attacks Saudi Arabia, the Americans pledge to come in and immediately fight on Saudi Arabia's behalf. Trust me. Okay, it's out there. Then the United States is to pledge that it will support a Saudi Arabian civilian nuclear program. If I count up the number of heads that have gone from left to right on the screen, I would say we don't have overwhelming support for this proposal. On the contrary. But before you continue shaking, in addition, Saudi Arabia is being asked to separate itself from Russia and China economically and politically. It's not a one-sided big ask. It's a big ask in both directions. Then Saudi Arabia is being asked to normalize relations with Israel like the countries in the Abraham Accords. On condition that Israel makes significant concessions toward the Palestinians toward a two-state solution. That's quite a complicated deal. Bibi has said, don't worry about the concessions to the Palestinians. Whatever we do will be cosmetic. It won't change anything. I think it's so brilliant of him to say that in public. I mean, setting aside, he shouldn't be thinking it. How smart is it? Just say it. Then we have Tom Friedman. Tom Friedman has become an active participant in these conversations. I'm not quite sure how that works in the world of journalism. But Tom Friedman has now taken in his posting, it's in the most recent times, but publicly speaking, being interviewed, has come out strongly in support of the US efforts to broker a deal between Israel and Saudi Arabia. He is not taking a journalist neutral position. He said the last couple of days to Saudi Arabia, don't let Bibi treat you like a fool. That Bibi is going to offer things which are meaningless to pull the wool over American eyes. Don't let Bibi do it. This is not, I mean, how neutral does that sound? It doesn't sound neutral at all. Tom Friedman said, don't allow Bibi to sweet talk the U.S. without having to give the Palestinians anything of significance. If the U.S. lets Bibi get away with it in these discussions, that will be the end of the dream. No, excuse me. That would be advancing the dream of Israel annexing the West Bank. That's that story. Do you have any comments, any thoughts, any responses? Sylvia, yeah, don't yell at me, Sylvia, okay?
I wouldn't dream of it. Friedman has converted himself from an unbiased journalist reporting on what's going on to an opinion writer and an editorial writer. It used to be that there would be stories, news stories with his byline, and they were news stories. He is no longer writing news. He is now writing opinion. And he makes it very clear that they are his opinions based on his experience as a head of the bureau in Jerusalem and all that. So I don't have a problem because he makes it clear it's his opinion, and the New York Times is perfectly willing to support that. In a sense, he's become part of the editorial board.
The only, I guess, itch that I have about that is that when I see Tom Friedman writing opinion, I can't quite wean myself from Tom Friedman reporting objective news.
It's called evolution.
It's called
Evolution.
You're asking me to evolve?
No, he has already evolved.
Oh, okay. Because Risa can tell you the chances of my evolving at this stage are pretty low. But oh, hi, Michael. And Sylvia, you are correct. Okay, he says it as opinion, but from my perspective, his opinion could have been written at Foggy Bottom in the State Department. Okay. By the way, I agree with his opinion. Okay, that's the way. Michael, hand up, and then Brad.
I was going to ask how great are the benefits of the normalization, because I would say that for the US having to pledge, permanent allyship to a rather murderous and repressive regime, and Israel saying that it's going to ignore its own commitments in the deal, it feels like there's not much to be gained unless that Saudi normalization is worth a whole heck of a lot.
Could I just say to you privately, Michael, with no one else listening, that there's something about the deal that the United States is pushing which could set in motion the fall of Bibi's government. And that might not be out of the interests of the United States. So, as with all diplomacy, it's going in multiple directions. If Bibi accepts it, or most of it, his government will fall. If he rejects it, the world is going to turn on Israel. Okay, Brad.
Rabbi, there was a wonderful segment on the PBS NewsHour last night about this. And in terms of the concessions to the Palestinians, what was pointed out was that there would be a freezing of settlements and a disbanding of certain of the illegal settlements. Those were two of the things that were mentioned in terms of the Palestinians.
Yes. Yeah. You would agree, Brad, dismantling of settlements is throwing a torch onto a pile of hay. It's going to be explosive. And then the same thing, if Risa and I, we've mentioned this before, were present to see the beginning stages of a new Palestinian city, a beautiful, commercially viable, nice place to live, Palestinian city, designed by the people who designed Modi'in, a wonderful city in Israel. The city is built. All that's missing is a mile-long strip of highway, which would connect that Palestinian city to the major roadways in the West Bank. And Israel has refused to allow that mile-long strip of highway to be built. That should be one of the concessions, I suspect, in the conversation. But it's going to take a lot more than that. Any other points? We'll move on. I'm afraid that today is like frustration day because we don't know how that's going to end either. I am kind of excited by these conversations among America, Saudi Arabia, and Israel. There is a possibility that something could emerge from that. And I want to hold on to that. Good news. Elon Musk has threatened to sue the ADL, Anti-Defamation League. I beg your pardon? Somebody was giggling.
No, it's true. I know all about it.
All right.
I'm not sure it's good news.
He says Musk has accused the ADL of trying to kill X, which used to be Twitter, by falsely accusing me and X of being anti-Semitic, despite the fact that ADL has overtly and frequently stated that they are not in any way accusing Musk of anti-Semitism. Musk went on to say that if he does file the lawsuit, it's going to be for loads of money because it is the responsibility of the ADL for X having lost 60% of its advertising revenue. This is it. They are on track, said Musk, of destroying half the value of the company. The company is valued, it's at just 44 billion. And he is ready to accuse the ADL of causing a loss of $22 billion. Anybody still breathing?
Well, what you claim isn't what you get. I mean, he's just throwing numbers out there.
And I want to close, Steve, with
Even
this.
if he wins, it doesn't mean he gets anywhere near that kind of money.
I want to close with this. As the language is not mine, Musk has rather magnanimously clarified that he would settle for $4 billion in damages instead. Harv,
Well, I think a defense would be bad management. And I think they could point to a lot of things Mr. Musk has done since he's taken over that company that would come under the heading of bad management and could be taught in business classes all over the country of what not to do when you take over a company, like run off all the employees, the ones who know what they're doing, for instance.
Harv, that's not a defense. All it is a manner of what damages are attributable to what they're liable for.
No, I think it's a defense in that he's the guy who ran down the company, not the ADL.
No, but if he can prove the ADL hurt him by anti-Semitism, all that does is go to measure of damages. It doesn't mean he loses.
okay. By the way, I just unfortunately read a local version of the New York Times, the Santa Monica Gazette or something. And it said that Santa Monica has run out of money, and it's not its fault because it had to pay out over $20 million in damages for a staff member of Santa Monica who was molesting children or something. And so it's not any mismanagement. They just had this unfortunate loss. So, okay, Risa and then Merle.
I just like the idea that Musk is giving ADL that much power that they could have done such a thing.
Risa, you know that Jews control not everything, but the big things. Okay, you know that. So this is just one of the levers of power that we use to keep the world under our control. And that's kind of why we have a partnership with the Masons to attack the Vatican. I mean, the whole thing is very, very well laid out. Merle.
I guess my big question,
Everyone who's listening on a recording, I was being sarcastic. Go ahead.
I guess my big question is, where's the proof of what the ADL has done against him? We have a friend who's like a regional director for ADL or something, and we've seen nothing of her telling us what ADL has done to him.
Well, they've put out things. There have been spokesmen who've said he's anti-Semitic.
Yeah, it's been
That has happened.
But
It's
not just ADL.
What doesn't matter? I mean, the fact that other people do it isn't a defense.
Yeah,
Right.
that's not a defense. ADL has done what I consider to be a magnificent job of pinpointing postings that have been on Twitter, on X, that have been anti-Semitic. So,
Well, truth is a defense, but I want to know why he's going against probably 60% of the people who purchase his cars.
well, I don't know that. I don't know that to be true. I think that goes to my comment, Teresa, about Jews controlling everything. I'm not quite sure that 60% of all Teslas have been purchased or by Jews.
I'd say it's disproportionate to our share of the population by a long
I'm moving on from that. I have nothing positive to say about what you just said. Now, this is a very rough group.
Hired.
Look in temple parking lots over high holidays.
Stop. Oh God, I'm going to be cut off the air, right? Wouldn't that?
No,
You're going to be cut
Right.
off. You're going to be cut off from the family because you're going to get Zeke fired.
Okay, so Zeke works at Tesla and Ron drives a Tesla. What am I supposed to do about that? Tell Steve our family supports his numbers? No. I won't. Okay. Now, in order that we understand, this is a crazy world. In order that we understand the reality of what's going on, between Ben Gvir and Smotrich, bad things are happening. Have you ever heard of the Wexner Foundation? It is one of the best pro-education major Jewish foundations in the country. Actually, it's bigger than the country. Wexner has a big position in Israel. Wexner, its leadership is golden. One of the things that Wexner does is send commanders and above, senior officers of the Israeli police to study at Harvard University to prepare them with whatever programs they have to be better at their profession. Harvard, okay, no problem. That's a good thing. The Israeli National Security Minister in charge of the police, Ben-Gvir, has ended the program because he knows that Wexner is a leftist organization and he doesn't want his police officers polluted by what Wexner is promoting through Harvard. It went into effect immediately. That thing has already happened. Risa, is your hand up or you just left it there? Okay, that's fine. I don't want to not show respect to you. I did mention that September 12th, the Israeli Supreme Court will begin deliberating. The Israeli Supreme Court meets in different configurations. It's not like the US Supreme Court. It's 9 so far. It's 9, and that's the full Supreme Court. The Israeli Supreme Court can choose to hear a case with 3 justices, different configurations. One of the reasons for that is Israel has no court of appeals. So the Supreme Court is both the Supreme Court and also functions as a court of appeals. And as a court of appeals, it can handle things with 3 justices and handle a lot more work. The Supreme Court is going to evaluate that law that has been adopted, but it's on hold, with a composition of 15 justices. They're throwing the whole court at the issue, which I think is terrific. You know, it certainly, for whatever reason, will give it credibility. And the Supreme Court is going to be asked to look at what needs to be done to preserve democracy in Israel. At the same time, Bibi and the Knesset are trying to, can you hamstring a Jewish court? Hamstring, whatever. They're trying to, whatever, limit the Supreme Court and take away its power. You know that Israel does not have a bicameral system. There's one Knesset, and the Knesset is controlled from the prime minister. The only outside force is the court. And if you remove power from the court, the power of the prime minister and the Knesset become what I would call fully capable of being autocratic. Fully capable of being autocratic. Not a small deal. There is a rally Sunday, the 10th of September. Remember, the Supreme Court is going to do its stuff on the 12th. It's going to start to do its stuff on the 12th. On September 10th, there is a call for a worldwide rally attempting to strengthen the Israeli Supreme Court. There will be a rally in Los Angeles on the 10th. And what I am unabashedly doing is asking you and your friends, cousins, neighbors, brothers, sisters, children, grandchildren to be there on September 10th. If you can, numbers, that's what's going to be reported in the press, right? There were 12 people, there were 500 people. That's what's going to be reported in the press. So, September 10th, the rally is being organized by Unacceptable. You know that Unacceptable spelled, how do you spell it? UN capital XEPTABEL. I don't know how that gets to be unacceptable, but that's Unacceptable. Is an organization founded by Israeli expats living outside of Israel who wanted their voice and feeling to be heard. And they are doing a massively positive, my prejudice, effective thing. Howard Weisberg.
When you were, if you don't mind going back to the Wexner Foundation, I was a little surprised at how the glowing review, I had to check it. Wasn't Wexner the owner of Victoria's Secret and a longtime associate of Jeffrey Epstein?
You know, it is definitely true that the founder of Wexner was one of those who supported Jeffrey Epstein.
He was his financial advisor.
That forgive me, Howard, that in no way diminishes the incredible boots on the ground successes of the Wexner Foundation. And whatever I feel about Jeffrey Epstein and the weird culpability of some significant Jewish leaders to have backed Epstein, that in my mind cannot be allowed to besmirch Wexner. My God, they produce annually the richest cohort of future Jewish leaders. The Wexner Leadership Program is the blue ribbon training ground for Jewish leaders. And it is that here in Los Angeles and elsewhere around the country and the world. They have a beautiful piece of property in Jerusalem. They do awesome things. And the guy who founded Wexner was as stupid as possible in backing or supporting, advising Jeffrey Epstein.
Oh, making his money from Victoria's Secret, too.
You don't like a Victoria's Secret?
Well, what is?
I don't think I want to ask that question.
What is her secret, anyhow? I'd like to find out.
It's something to do with lingerie. And I, of course, would never look at their ads and have never. All right, I'm lying a little bit. But anyway, they're a top-notch merchandiser. Merle.
I was just going to say, Howard, it's a women's lingerie company that has been a part of for I can't even tell you how many years. And they go in all different directions as far as types of lingerie and nightgowns and pajamas. And, it's big with the teenage kids. Certainly not an offensive company.
You ought to get a catalog.
They toned down their catalog. It's not what it was 30 years ago.
Just go online and look at it.
I'm in no position to judge that. Okay.
It's a big teenage thing.
So unacceptable, September 10th, please, please, if you can break yourselves free, be present. The rallies are fully nonviolent. There's been nothing, no skirmishes, no arrests, nothing. They're just a bunch of us standing there in support of democracy in Israel. And the group, unacceptable. I don't get anything out of it. But if you want to send money to help support this process, UNXEPT, unacceptable. Yes, I haven't seen their profit loss statements, but I think they're really solid. Okay, next. Israel is receiving a new American ambassador. Okay, his name is Jack Lew, L-E-W. Some of the Republicans don't like Lew because he was involved in crafting the original deal with Iran. He is an Orthodox Jew. He was White House Chief of Staff, and from, current activities, Chief of Staff is important. Chief of Staff for Clinton, member of the cabinet, who is totally pro-Israel. I am pleased to say that the only international Jewish organization to oppose Lew is the Zionist Organization of America, my favorite group. And they find Lew, an Orthodox Jew, way too liberal for them. To me, that's like stamping kosher. Really? The ZOA is opposed? Must be good. Okay, so there's that. Next, how many of you know? Do you have anything? Someone wants to say something? How many of you speak some words of Yiddish? Okay. I've been reading some very interesting historic documents, including letters written by Ben-Gurion, others, about Hebrew as the language of the state of Israel. Actually, Ben-Gurion, in these letters, was fighting vigorously against those who didn't want Israel to be the name of the Jewish state. And there are all kinds of reasons. What I never fully understood until maybe the last few weeks, that the drive to establish Yiddish in Israel as the, I think it's wrong to say lingua franca, but the language of the country was pretty strong. At the time before the Holocaust, Yiddish was a huge language among European Jewry. And one of the appeals of making Yiddish the language of the new Jewish state would be that Eastern European Jews could move comfortably to the new state without having to learn a new language. No, I mean, that says something. That's fine. A recent op-ed in the New York Times asserted that Hebrew, quote, represents far-right Israeli militarism. And that we should go back to promoting Yiddish as the language of the Jewish state. Steve?
I was going to say, in terms of Yiddish, I think it makes Europe look more colonial. I think it's a slap in the face toward the Jews who were actually living in the area. And it also would have been something contrary to what the Jews' position was about the founding of Israel. And although many people in the UN voted to support the state because it would provide a homeland for World War II Jewish refugees to go to, the desire for Israel to be a homeland for the Jews was a much broader concept and did not want to have it labeled as only a response to the Holocaust.
Thank you, Howard.
If I'm not mistaken, the woman who wrote that statement did not say, first of all, I think she was talking about current views of Hebrew, not views in 1948. And secondly, she didn't say Hebrew is the language, or that she thinks Hebrew is the language of militarism. She said that some people think or feel.
This is the exact quote. I have been clever enough
Okay,
keep the exact quote.
correct me.
Quote, Hebrew language symbolizes far-right Israeli militarism.
But before that, she said among certain people. She didn't
That's
say,
not in this quote. And
I don't know. I read something about it, so I'd have to look it up.
okay. Now,
But she's actually a very respected.
I think it's a he. It's Ilan Stavins, a Jew, a co-author of How Yiddish Changed America and America Changed Yiddish.
Oh, okay.
Hebrew, by the way, is officially recognized as the national language of Israel, spoken by 9 million people today. What is, and we mentioned this, I think, the last time, some of the promotion of Yiddish, which, by the way, is having a renaissance in the United States. Part of it is a non-Zionist response that the language of the Jewish people should not be tied to the state of Israel. And that Israel speaks Hebrew, all right, but we don't want to be controlled by the Zionist entity. There is some of that in the promotion of Yiddish. Trust me, not all of it, not most of it, but some of it is there. And this is a piece of that. You know, Yiddish had a rich literary tradition. It wasn't all Shalom Aleichem, but that's a rich literary tradition too. But Yiddish, many wonderful texts were written in Yiddish. And unless we get them translated, they're lost to us. The loss of the Yiddish language is a loss. And, you know, we just don't want to blow it off. On the other hand, Yiddish is not the national language of the Jewish people. And so it's different. Howard?
I was able to look it up, and the actual quote is, Hebrew, officially recognized as the national language of Israel in 1948, is spoken by approximately 9 million people globally. To some, however, this language represents far-right Israeli militarism.
Yes,
And that is absolutely true. All the Palestinians, everybody in the Biden administration, they'll all sign on to that. Well, not everybody in the Biden administration, but some people. Everybody who hates Israel.
and to them we say, a big gesund.
Exactly.
A big gesund. Sylvia,
If you really want to support the saving and translating of Yiddish literature, there's a place called the Yiddish Book Center in Amherst, Massachusetts, that's doing an amazing, amazing job of, first of all, saving the physical books and then digitizing them in both Yiddish and English. And
We-
they,
This is Evo.
we
Evo
remember,
is doing that too.
no, but this center is, we remember kind of smirking when it got started. Yeah,
yes,
yeah, they're gonna save Yiddish. Yeah, good. I'm gonna, like save the whatever. And it is successful. It is very successful. And its work, YIVO does much scientific work, scientific in the sense of scholarly work. The Yiddish Center is doing an incredible job of proselytizing for the re-embrace of Yiddish. Let me just move on. Anyone be able to tell me where Fustat is? F-U-S-T-A-T?
Egypt?
Who said that? Howard, if anyone else had said that, I would have said you're right. Now I have to be cautious here. But yes, yes, it is Egypt. Fustat ended up being called Old Cairo. And then, Cairo replaced it. In Fustat, there is the Ben Ezra Synagogue. The building is 1,200 years old. 1,200. The building had a unique use in those 1,200 years. What was it used for?
That's where the Cairo Geniza?
That is correct. The so-called Cairo Geniza is in Fustat. Okay, we're not going to pick. The Cairo Geniza was in the synagogue where they had a large walled-in area. No documents with Hebrew were ever thrown out. They were saved and kept in the Cairo Geniza and then forgotten. And then discovered. And the Cairo Geniza, if you look up Genizah, the Cairo Geniza is one of the most incredible assortment gathering of important Jewish data over 1,200 years, including business documents showing what the Jews were involved with, including wedding documents, divorce documents, synagogue, God knows, governance things. Everything was there. I think it's got to be over 100 years ago, but I'm not sure that the Geniza was found. It is being studied today. They have not yet studied all that they found there. The Egyptian government decided the synagogue in Fustat is a major Jewish tourist spot. The government decided a building that old should be renovated. They did a major restoration, the government did, of the building. So the Ben Ezra Synagogue is shining once again. At the dedication, the Egyptian government brought officials from everywhere to celebrate this cultural achievement. Noted that there were no local Jews invited to participate in the rededication. That's all. You know, the Hebrew response to that is kacha. That's just the way it was. They rededicated the synagogue and didn't invite any Jews. Good news. Good news. While we're doing news, Israel opened up secret talks with Libya, looking to forge ties between Libya and Israel. Some of the meetings were held in Bahrain, and the foreign ministers went there for the meeting. And then the Israeli top diplomat met in Rome on August 26th with the top Libyan diplomat for a secret meeting, beginning the arduous process of opening a political door. The foreign minister, Cohn, came back to Israel following the secret meeting and held a press conference announcing the secret meeting. Anyone here breathing? The response of the Libyan government was to fire its foreign minister. I don't know. She now, the foreign minister, not only was fired, she had to flee the country. She's running for her life. I wish her well. This is just not a happy thing. The last thing, because I will have to end on time, sort of. There is a synagogue in Manhattan called the Spanish Portuguese Synagogue. Any of you ever visit it? It's a wonderful building. It's on Central Park West, right, Lisa? Central Park West. And you got to go, Michael. Okay, bye. Originally, it was run by pure Sephardim. The Sephardi Tahor is Spain, Portugal, the real Sephardim. Unfortunately, we're running a little short of real Sephardim. So now their current rabbi is Ashkenazi. Nevertheless, that's not the point. They own the Turo Synagogue in Newport, Rhode Island. America's oldest. And since the early 1900s, the congregation occupying the Turo building has been leasing the site from the Spanish Portuguese in Manhattan for $1 a year. Is that not nice? Spanish Portuguese Synagogue decided, for a variety of reasons, that they needed to get rid of that congregation because they weren't caring for the building. There's a whole bunch of stuff. A Rhode Island judge has now ruled that the Spanish Portuguese synagogue does indeed have full claim. The other congregation is kicked out. And that congregation must be out right now, must be out. Spanish Portuguese was established itself in the 1600s. The 1600s. And the only reason I mention that, it's so nice having synagogues go to court fighting with each other over synagogue property. That's so nice. I'm going to have to end now unless anyone wants to raise a point. We have a minute. Everything else good? Learn anything new today? Anything happy? I don't know about happy, but the Jewish world heading into the high holy days is in terrible turmoil. Please do not understand it as anything less than that. At Wilshire, Yom Kippur afternoon, Rabbi Leader is leading a discussion about Israel. Since we joined in 2014, that's the first for that kind of an activity. Please remember September 10th. September 10th, the rally supported by Unacceptable on behalf of democracy in Israel. If you can be there, it's a good thing.
Where is it?
I'm going to assume it's in front of the Israeli embassy, consulate, excuse me. The Israeli consulate.
That's right.
Okay. That's what I assume. And you just have to check to get timing and all that. It's, and they ask you if you have a very large Israeli flag, bring it. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you for being here. Tell people about us.
Thank
We
you.
are the most interesting place to be.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Have a great
Bye,
week.
everybody. Have a good day.
You too.
Thank you.